Hi, good to see us again, Andy. Here, I've been away for a month preparing for you some very interesting programs and automations in the field of AI for HR. For over the next fortnight, we shall be learning about automating the processes for developing training programs, sessions, content, and presentation slides as an HR tool. You, the HR practitioner that wants to quicken and improve efficiency in coming up with a lot of training programs, you can use this AI automation and make your learning and development function more accessible, and more efficient, and more effective. What does this tool do? We shall take an input like a training topic, an audience, the number of sessions, the training period, the time per session, start time, end time, training event date, and it goes through a progress of developing over 10 training program outputs. And some of these outputs are like training title, the training overview, the purpose of the training, the objectives, learning outcomes, references and examples, learning plans, session blueprints. I use this tool to develop training programs for the work that I do, and want to walk you through what I did and how I now develop my training programs. And we shall start with a simple step by step process and improve as we get to more complex processes. But this is already done for you. All you have to do is to watch the video end to end, each session, and begin to discover how you can leverage AI in your HR work today. Join our AI for HR community and get the full step by step videos on this as well as the templates, LLM instructions, and other resources in AI for HR. You can also subscribe to this channel, Coach Ande, like this video and share it with your colleagues so that they also learn how to automate their work. Let's dive in.
So we're going to start with the process of building our own training program designer. Welcome to AI for HR. The first thing we will do is to look at what we need to design a training program. Speaking to HR professionals, there are many things that you'll need to know to be able to design a training program. After that, once we've listed or identified these things that we need to know, then we define how the workflow will be transitioning. And when we are done, we'll move into our AI automation work platform, vectorshift for starters, and then later we'll do it in NA10 and demonstrate step by step how I created and designed training program designer that allows you to enter specific information and output and generate a fully packaged training program, including the sessions, the lesson plans, the slide decks, and reference materials, as well as things that the participants will be using during the training. We are going to bias our training program design on the Kolb's learning cycle, the experiential learning design. There are different kinds of training and learning designs, but we will focus on Kolb's experiential learning design. Let's see you in the next minute. So let's kick into this whole training program design and automation for AI for HR. What will we start with? We'll ask ourselves what the inputs are. The inputs we are looking for are what topic we'll be talking about. Who is the audience? How many days will this training run? How many hours per day? What training modality will it be like? Will it be online? Will it be offline? When is the training starting? When is it ending? What dates that is? The start time, the end time, the number of sessions per day. If we want to get a better output, it is easier to even add how do we contextualize? Which country are we talking about? Which region? Where do we want to draw examples from? And then we give a context. What type of organization are we designing this training program for? If you have a website, add information in that respect. If you have a strategy, you provide this information. This will allow us to customize and allow the AI think and in a structured manner and pointed towards your organization, your context, your country, and the rest. So these are the critical inputs we'll be needing before we get into designing the training program. So when we get these inputs, we will ask ourselves, how do we go through the process of automation? We'll need to generate a training title. We'll need to have a training overview. We will need to have a purpose for training. we'll need to have training objectives, we will need to have learning outcomes, we will need to have references and examples, we'll need to have a learning plan, we'll need to have a session blueprint, we'll need to have a slide deck, we will need to have a wrap-up session, we'll need to have a mechanism through which we'll evaluate whether they have learned, we'll need to be able to have accessibility and inclusion plans such that we cater for all the participants. And then how will we facilitate change? And now that they've learned, how will we enable change? Then we look at the sustainability and handover component of our training. And then we also talk about what is the trainer guide going to look like. And then we create the training slides. And after that, we shall create the training program document and save the documents and slides and hopefully email that to the person who is supposed to be training. This is the automation we want to implement, such that all you have to do is enter the initial information we highlighted earlier, what topic, what audience, how many days, hours per day, and we output and get an email of everything packaged for us, ready for us to deliver the training program or ready for us to review before we deliver the training program. This can be facilitated by AI and makes your work trim from 2-3 weeks, 2-3 days, 4-3 days to something to about 20, or if you have too much to do, maybe 30 minutes worth of automation time. So let's dive in the next section, and we will be looking at vectorshift, the dashboard, how we begin to create this step by step up to the point when we will have the entire training program packaged for us. So we are going into the design of our training program. If you're new to vectorshift, just go to vectorshift.ai, type on your browser, vectorshift.ai, and you will get to the vectorshift homepage. Click get started or click login, and then we get ourselves started with this whole process. Now, when you log into vectorshift, you'll be taken to a window that will show you what your projects are. If you do not have any projects, don't worry. You look for the feature that says create a new pipeline, and then we can start creating pipelines. In vectorshift, a workflow is called a pipeline. We shall click and create a new pipeline and start the process of building our automation for training program design. And when we're building a training program design and we're building an automation, we must have some inputs that we produce and then go through a series of steps and processes and then get an output. So we shall start by building the inputs and testing them. And then once we are done with building the inputs, we shall continue with the process step by step. So going back to our training program design, we said inputs will be topic, audience, days, hours per day, and training modalities, and all these other things. So we shall take each of these and create an input for our training automation in vectorshift. So input number one, we click and drag the input node and enter it into our dashboard. We shall call this input the topic, and we shall title our program training program designer, our pipeline. So you just go to the top right corner where there is pipelines. You can edit the name of the pipeline. So we have over 10 inputs. The other input shall be audience. We want to train people on a group of an audience on a specific topic. So we'll name that input audience. It's preferable that you name your inputs so that it allows you to keep track of the flow, though you can have an input without a name. And so we shall move from audience to number of days, training days. We shall call that days, training days. Those are already 3 inputs. We shall create inputs between inputs so that we do not occupy a lot of space, but you know your dashboard can, your workflow or your pipeline can fill an entire screen and you have to move between screens, don't worry, we shall continue with that. Even if we have to fill the screen, we shall keep scrolling up, down, left or right. How many hours per day? What are the training modalities? We shall say training modality. Well, let me just call it modality. By modality, we are talking about, is it going to be online? Is it going to be offline? Is it going to be hybrid? And that shall be an option we shall have to input to allow the LLM structure the training program according to what we want. Let's go to the next. The next is hours per day. How many hours will we be doing the training per day? We label that input, and then we go to the next, which is start date of training, end date of training. We shall do start date, end date, start time, end time. So this will be start date, start date of training. All these are inputs that we will need to be able to get clarity and to allow the AI to be very concise and precise with the kind of training we want. End date. Okay, after start date, end date, we had start time and end time. Okay. Training start time, training end time. All these are inputs that will feed into different LLMs in the process of designing the training program. How many sessions do we want per day? And then what context, country or region, and then the nature of organization. Number of sessions per day, and then contextualization. So these will be our inputs. Number of sessions, and then we shall say country, context, and then from country context we shall put organizational or business context. Let's call it business organization context. So you'll have to tell the AI a little bit about the organization, what it does and things like that. And so we have our inputs ready. These inputs will be fed through a series of steps to be able to generate our workflow. Now, we will need to create a training title. We will need to create a training overview. We will need to create a purpose of training. We'll need to create training objectives. We'll need to create learning outcomes. But before we go through that whole process, we need to be able to do some sort of research. So I'll just copy this and paste it here and say all this must be backed by research. And the AI will do research on that topic and allow us to be able to pick information relevant to the topic that we want. Now, sometimes people will give broad topics. If you're not careful and you give a topic that is beyond, is not very specific, you're going to have a problem getting the kind of information you want. But let's delve into this for now. We have our inputs, and our input nodes tell us what we need to do. We will start by pulling out or calling an LLM. Now, most of the times, ChatGPT can do deep research. Perplexity does deep research. All these LLMs now do deep research, but people are leaning towards Perplexity and its ability to do research. So in order for us to get an idea, if we do not know what we're doing with the specific training and we only have the topic at the back of our mind and the audience, then we will need to do research a component. So we'll create an LLM, drag and drop it into the from the AI menu. You go to the AI menu item and you select the LLM called Perplexity. You click, drag, drop, and we'll call it researcher. Okay, so this researcher is going to go through a process of looking for what's the latest on this topic, um, tailored to this audience, and what else? We shall pick something else for that, and we look at the country context, and we shall also ask the LLM to do research with respect to the specific organizational context. We will do this and then test and see if we can test the workflow. It may not run if we have a lot of the other nodes that don't have inputs, but we shall start with that. Now, what do we write as the set of instructions in the researcher? I'll come back to that as we prepare to define what the research should be doing. So I'll start by capturing the instructions for the LLM in the researcher node. These instructions have been prepared for you. You shall find them in your notes. So we always say if you're going to do training, especially for professionals, you either have a very experienced person or you have a person who is learned at the highest level. In this case, we say you're safe saying postdoctoral or doctoral research assistant. We are looking for a researcher, the best level research, and we want an experienced practitioner so that we have a blend of both theory and practice, because the cold learning cycle allows you to go through an experience, you reflect on it, and then having had that reflection, you're able to conceptualize by linking it with what is best practice or what is theory, depending on who your audience is. So we get this kind of information, ask the prompt to be the research assistant and experienced practitioner, and the task is to produce an in-depth research report. You're provided with the following inputs: the topic, the audience, the country context, the organizational context. And we say complete the following tasks using academic journals, grey literature, and credible online publications. Your output should be well researched, comprehensive, and not exceed 5,000 words. Present the information in structured manners in sections: introduction, background, relevance, current landscape, evidence, implications for practice, and recommendations. Cite all statements of fact or claims with superscript references. We don't want it to hallucinate. Include a reference list. There's different referencing formats. In my case, I'm just saying APA, American Psychological Association referencing format at the end, and these references should match the superscripts. And then the paper should be written in a professional tone with extensive detail appropriate for use in training design. I think I'll just remove the in extensive detail, and we don't say appropriate for use in training design, otherwise it will think like it's developing a research for training. It should conclude with a summary of implications for the audience and output only the research report and nothing else. Do not output any text about your thought process or for coming up with a research report. So we are telling the AI there are 4 inputs that it should be able to read, to receive. Okay, so the inputs are, okay, I put the prompt in a different place, but that's still okay. I'll put this prompt as part of the system instructions. I paste them there, and then I pick them out and select the 4 inputs that we need to link to this AI. We are using Perplexity, bear in mind, and the model we shall be using is Sonar Deep Research, so that we have the AI do the research for us. Okay, so Sonar Deep Research, we said the topics is one of the things we shall be having. we have the audience, we will have the country context. So when you're inputting a node, linking a node to another, you either click double curly brackets, you press double curly brackets on your keyboard, it will bring you a drop down list of the nodes that are available for you to pick from. And we said we shall pick topic, which is a text node. And so the topic will be read by the LLM for it to do the research. We look for the audience, again double curly brackets, click audience, the input will be text. The country context, we had a node that specifies which country. We scroll and get that country context node and click and capture it there. And then we had organizational context. If you want your research to be tailored to your organization, you're safer being describing the nature of organization. So this is what we'll need to do. If we want to see how the research looks like, we'll go back to our start menu and test this. It's good to test your workflow at every step of the process so that you can catch any errors along the way. So we shall make sure we can link this to the output. The outputs for the research shall come into this output node. You can either click double curly brackets and look at the researcher LLM, that is our researcher that is going to the research, and we pick the response. There are many options you'd pick, but we're looking for the response that we shall get from the researcher. Now, when you're done and you want to test whether your researcher is going to give you information, at least up to this stage for the topic and the audience, looking at the country context and organizational context, you click deploy changes, which is at the top, almost top right. Once you deploy it as a patch for now. We shall learn more when we are doing the deployment, and then you test run. Hopefully the inputs won't be, it will allow us to test run the topic and audience and the training days. What we shall enter for starters is just the topic, and we shall say what topic. We can use the topic AI for human resources management. And since we are doing AI for HR, the audience will be HR practitioners from entry level to C-suite. C-suite means boardroom. We only have that, and then we'll say what is the country context. Country context shall be, let's say, South Africa. And then what organization shall we pick in South Africa? Let's say MTN, Mobile Telecom Network. MTN South Africa is the organization. Okay, so let's see if it will run, or it will tell us we need to capture more inputs. So we click run, and as you run this, you'll realize there is a pop-up that will come giving you a picture of what is happening in the background. You can click view trace. It's called trace view. You can click view trace. It will open another pop-up window and give you an idea of how the training program designer is running. As you run this, each node shows you how much time it took and what the outputs are. So we shall look at that, test this workflow up to the point of we have a topic, we have an audience, we have a country context, and we have an organizational context. Okay, and we want to have some research on the topic of AI and contextualize it to South Africa. I think what we needed to add in the research, did we say not exceeding 5,000 words? We didn't talk about the duration. How far back should the research go? So this run takes a bit of time, but we shall check and see what the trace looks like, what is happening in the background as the research is being run. The output shall be a research report that is about 5,000 words that shall be used as the source material for our training program according to the topic that we have. Let's come back when the research is done and see how much time it took for us to get a research by Perplexity. As we can see, some 95 seconds have moved. We shall continue when the research is completed. So research is done. Research is done. It ran out and generated an output, included its thought process. We have to find a way of eliminating the thought process. And then we shall now pick the research output. And the topic is there. It talks about AI for human resource management, strategic implications in South Africa's mobile telecom sector. Has given you that. If our staff were HR people in MTN in South Africa, then we'd be saying, this is what we're going to be doing to talk about AI for HR to MTN employees in South Africa. This is the research we've found out. It gives us a summary of the key findings. It gives us a background how AI has evolved in HR, evolution of HR in South Africa's telecom sector. It tells us how AI, its relevance in HR, and the imperatives, strategic imperatives for MTN. It talks about the current landscape and the application of AI in HR, in recruitment. It talks about onboarding and training. It talks about performance management and retention. It talks about employee engagement and support. And then it goes into ethical and legal considerations. So we have the research that we need to prepare our training program. The next step shall be, now that we have this research, can we generate a title? Can we generate the topics? Can we go through all these other phases that we talked about in our dashboard? The training title, overview, purpose of training, training objectives, etc., etc. So I'm going to create the next node and walk us through the process of gleaning a good training title. We've given it a topic, give us a training title. We've given it a topic and it has given us a research, give us a training overview, and then create LLMs, hopefully for each or most of these items to automate and get our outputs ready. Let's come back in the next minute and look at what the next thing shall be. Welcome back. We're going to look at how to create the training title using the information we already have. And as we do this, we shall also say, now that it's created a research, where do we keep the research report? Now that it's created a training title, how do we keep and save this such that we keep track of this as we go on? Prompt, we'll take an LLM and insert an OpenAI LLM. Once we have the LLM there, we shall call this one title LLM. Title. This title, the system instructions have been generated for you. You'll simply have to copy them and paste. We are using a copywriter. A copywriter is a person who writes text in a manner that is appealing to a specific audience, and we want this title to be appealing to the trainees that we shall be taking through this training program. So we tell the AI it should be a copywriter. Using the variables provided, craft an ear-catching course title, and it should return a single plain line, no quotation marks, no line breaks. Using what variables? The variables will be provided are the topic, okay, the audience, and we shall have research as a variable. So these are the three things that we shall give it. It will have a topic, it will have the audience, and it will have the research that we want it to pay attention to. And these shall be the information. We already have the country context in the research. We already have the organizational context in the research. So we don't need to put that again. We said we have topic, content, audience, and research. So I'll just copy this and take it to the next the prompt. We've given the LLM its instructions and the prompt is there. Remember we said when you're capturing or linking nodes, you press double curly brackets and then we look for the topic and we capture the text that has been fed into the input node on topic. Then we capture the audience and the audience input is also reflected. And then we capture the research, which is coming out of the LLM. And what was that? We called it researcher output response. So hopefully this will now give us a catchy topic for this audience. And then we shall move this output, remove this output and remove this link. And we now see we want to test this up to the point of our topic. Okay, so we had research, we will have a topic, and from that we will have this output. But now we have to bear in mind this information needs to start being stored somewhere. So we have to create a Google Sheets that will save our research that was created. It will save the titles that has been created. We shall go step by step through this process, but let's for now get this into the output so that we see what the topic and the title looks like. We already have a topic. The topic is we had AI for HR, and then we had research earlier, but we can always capture different topics. And then let's see what the training title will look like. After that, we shall go into training overview. Okay, we shall capture another LLM that gives us an overview of what the training will look like. And that overview will be reflected after we have gotten a title, we know the topic, we know the audience, and we have research. So I'll drag in another LLM, which will give us the training overview. Okay, OpenAI LLM. We'll say generate another training overview. So each of these items shall be saved on a Google Sheets in a different cell or row column, such that we can extract this information and put it in our master training document. So what do we capture in the training overview? In the training overview, we shall say give system instructions as follows. Again, this will be available to us. Write 120 words that summarize the course, the training, course duration, modality, pedagogy is the learning style, elevator pitch, and then return one paragraph without line breaks. So these are the detailed instructions, but we are going to say you are an experiential learning designer. You use Kolb learning called experiential learning design to create training courses and for programs. Okay, your task is to write 120 words that summarize the training course. Okay, so what are we going to give it? We're going to give it, you are provided with the following inputs. And we said we have audience, we had topic, we have title, we have audience, we have research, we have modality. We remember we said modality could be online, could be offline, and it could be hybrid. So once you've specified, we need a title that will a training overview that gives us a picture of how this training shall be conducted. And then of course there'll be elevator pitch, okay? And then modality, we have duration, start time, we have end time, we have start date, we have end date. All these are going to be inputs that it will use to create a 120 word training overview. Did we call it training overview? Yes, we call it training overview. So this will be copied and captured as inputs that we need to feed into this LLM to generate for us a training topic, a robust training topic. Now, the other thing we need to bear in mind is we decide how creative we want the LLM to be by defining the temperature and defining the top P. If you do not know what temperature and top P are, do not hesitate to just do a quick search online so that we can see we are on the same page. Yeah, so I'll define temperature and top P here to be very precise and not too creative to begin giving us what we are not really looking for, but to be strict and focus on the information that is available to it at that point. And that's what we mean by capturing temperature and top P. So what are the variables we want to capture here? We have topic, and the topic allows us to capture this from this drop down list. We have the title, which will come from our LLM that created the title, its response. We will have an audience. Remember who the audience was. That will be input by you. Then we have the research that was generated or that will be generated by the other LLM that was Perplexity, that is the researcher node that will feed to our research. And then we have what training modality. Will it be online? Will it be offline? Will it be hybrid? Okay. Training modality is here. Now, if you're using another platform, you could use a form that allows you to select between a drop-down list option. Start time, it should tell us when, where is start time? Start time is there, when we expect the training to start. End time, we should also add number of days, because if it's more than 1 day, we need to be very sure we know how many days for it to give us an overview, a proper overview. So yes, there is start date and end date. Hopefully it will figure out the number of days. If not, we can specify the total number of days, but it should be able to tell us X number of days from this start date and end date. And as we go ahead, we modify the prompts and make additional entries as and when we feel we need to get these entries done. So we have a title, we have a training overview. We will go to the next stage in the next session. We have done our research. We've generated a title from the topic and given the audience that we want. We have now generated a training overview, and this training overview shall be captured in our output. Okay. It could capture the training title and training overview. Now, if you want to have all these appear in one document, then you'll use a merge node, but we do not need to merge this right now. But for purposes of keeping track, let's create merge. Let's create a node that brings together the text that we have. Okay. and then we'll say what approach, join all. It is going to merge the text that we have from the topic, it's going to merge the text that we have from the topic, and we shall call this title. We don't need to input the research in the merging, and then we shall add another path. It will give us training overview. Okay, so we'll have our training title, we'll have our training overview, and all these will be put together into one text, and then it will push this to our output, which we shall see when we enter the training details that we want to be able to capture. And that will be the merge node. We shall rename the merger node so that we see what it looks like. So again, to keep track of what we're doing, I can just put all this together. We have various inputs that we give the LLM, which we shall fill by way of a form. After filling the form, we shall have these inputs running through to research. It will do research on the topic, giving us the context, and then it will generate a title. And when it's done, it will generate a set of training objectives, push these together into one document, and we shall see that in the output. This will be where we pause and then continue to the next after we've tested this. So we go and deploy the changes, and we say deploy. If it says successfully deployed, it means your pipeline should be able to run. We click run, and our inputs were, remember we had a topic AI for HR. How many training days? Oh yes, we said we'll have training days, so we need to include training days. We can say 3, but we didn't notify the LLM. We said start date will be 28th September 28 September 2025. End date will be 29th, let's say 30th 2025. Okay. Start time will be 9 a.m. End time will be 3 p.m. Okay, that's the input we have. Number of sessions, country context was South Africa, organizational context was MTN. So we shall look at all these: title, researcher response. We shall look at modality. Modality, yes, we didn't capture modality. Where is modality? Modality shall be hybrid, both online and in person. Okay, so now that we have all those details, we can test run this and see whether it will produce a summary of the training title and training overview on the topic of AI for human resource management for a country context called South Africa and an organization called MTN, Mobile Telecom Network. Give it some time, we'll come back with the results and continue. The research is done, the training title is done, and the training overview rather, has been completed. It took about 181 seconds. So we are ready to move on to the next. If you look at the outputs are here. The training title is AI-powered HR transformation, strategies and case studies for South African practitioners from entry level to C-suite. Then the training overview picks the title and says AI-powered HR transformation, strategies and case studies for South African practitioners from entry level to C-suite is a 3-day hybrid training program, 28th to 30th September 2025, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily. designed for HR professionals at all levels, leveraging Kolb's experiential learning cycle. Participants will engage in interactive workshops, real-world case studies with a focus on MTN South Africa, and hands-on activities to explore AI's impact on recruitment, performance management, and employee development. The course blends online modules with in-person sessions, ensuring flexibility and practical application. By the end, attendees will be equipped to ethically implement AI in HR, address local challenges, and drive digital transformation in their organizations, making them future-ready leaders in South Africa's evolving HR landscape. So here we have you developing a training title, having done research for the context of your organization or your country and the region, and developing a title and a training overview. Next set of videos shall show us how to develop the next set of things, which will be the purpose of the training, training objectives, and learning outcomes. See you then. Come back. We're done with the inputs. We are done with the research. We are done with the training title. We are done with the training overview. What are we going to do next? We're going to do the purpose of the training, and then the training objectives, and then the learning outcomes. Let's start with the purpose of the training. We are going to create another AI or create another AI in a node. The AI node will allow us to define instructions to give us the purpose of the training. We shall name that node purpose. This node shall have the instructions on how to create the purpose of the training. I'll just give you copy and paste instructions that have already been prepared for you. We shall have system instructions, and we shall have the LLM instructions. So the system instructions will read as follows. I'm copying and pasting them into the LLM system instructions. You're a professional learning experience designer and instructional strategist. Your expertise lies in designing outcome-driven training content using Kolb's experiential learning theory. We talked about that earlier. You produce concise plain text outputs that are suitable for entry into a single Google Sheet cell. You do not include line breaks, bullet points, or formatting that would span multiple cells. You are currently tasked with generating the purpose of a training using the provided variables: training title, training overview, the research report, audience, and topic. Okay, your outputs are always grounded in evidence from research reports and relevant to the stated topic and audience. You write with a tone that is professional, action-oriented, and clearly linked to learner-centered outcomes. You reflect the core values of experiential learning: observation, experience, reflection, and application. You do not repeat the training title or topic in full unless required to clarify purpose. Your output must fit in a single sentence if possible and must not exceed 300 characters. So those are the system instructions, and then we shall capture what we want it to interact with in terms of inputs, and we'll say using the inputs below. We talked about training title, we talked about topic, we talked about training overview. All these have already been pre-generated. So using the inputs below, training title, and remember we said, how do we capture an input? We capture the input using the double curly brackets, and we look at the response that we got from the LLM as the training title. We had our training overview already, which was an output we got from the LLM earlier. We have our research report to inform this LLM in its creation of the purpose of the training, which is from the researcher. Then we have the audience Remember the audience, we want to keep this in mind so that we do not lose focus or the LLM does not hallucinate or create something totally new that we are not familiar with. And then the topic. What was the overall topic? Was what we wanted to train people on at the beginning. So we've said craft a one-sentence purpose statement for the training. It should clearly state what the training intends to achieve for the given audience based on the training overview and research evidence. It should be aligned with Kolb's experiential learning approach by referencing learning by doing. Do not copy sentences from the research report. Instead, synthesize the evidence and express it in compelling terms. So that's what we have for the development of the purpose of the training. And because we want to see it as an output, we shall add a path here that we merge path 3, which is purpose. Again, to link a node to another, you open curly brackets. It will give you a drop-down list, and you scroll until you find the node that you want to link, and you select the output that you want to link. So we have the purpose of the training determined by another LLM. Now somebody will ask, why are we using different LLMs? Because the goal is to have a structured training program report or document that can be printed, downloaded at the end of the day, and used by an individual to deliver their training program or to present to management or leadership that this is what we're going to implement in our training program. We'll come back and deal with the training objectives in the next session. We now move to the section of learning objectives. Normally, learning objectives are the 1 to 3 things that you expect the people to learn out of the training. So we will create another or insert another LLM again, and this LLM shall be to define the learning objectives that we want to achieve. And we can rename or label this LLM as we did the others. We'll call this learning objectives, and we enter system instructions. The system instructions have been pre-developed for you, but you can use an LLM to modify them. You can use another LLM to generate them, but you'll find these available for you in the resources that have been provided. So the system instructions are: you are a professional instructional designer and learning strategist specializing in outcome-based training grounded in Kolb's experiential learning theory. Your task is to generate 3 to 5 clear and measurable learning objectives based on inputs provided. All objectives must reflect principles of experiential learning, learning through concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. Your outputs are formatted as plain text, suitable for a single Google Sheet cell. All objectives are listed in one line, separated by semicolons. Avoid line breaks, mark down bullet points, or numbered lists. Use only action verbs that align with Bloom's taxonomy and can be observed or measured. Do not repeat the purpose of the training, but build on it. Do not use vague verbs like understand or learn, and limit the responses to 400 characters. Again, if you're learning and design or experiential learning expert, you probably will understand why we have to go through these specific sets of instructions such that the training is tailored to what we are looking out for. For the prompt, we have to give it inputs as usual. It has to use that as its reference, and then link those inputs to the various nodes that we have created. So what do we want it to look at? Again, these inputs have been, this prompt has been pre-designed for you. You'll just pick it in the download section. We had the topic, For the topic, we pick the text that has been identified or captured. We have the training title, if you remember. Remember, if you want to insert a variable, you use double curly brackets on your keyboard. The title was generated by the LLM, so it will use that as the knowledge that it or its reference material to generate the purpose of the training. We created a training overview that was generated by the LLM, and this is what we have. We select the response from the LLM again. Research report, we tasked the one other LLM to do research for us. We call it researcher, and we capture this input as the research response. We had the audience that the user defined. Who are we training? We capture that so that the purpose of the training is targeted towards the audience that we're looking for. And then we have the purpose of the training that we had the LLM create just a short while ago. So as you can see, we are building on what we've already created to come up with a robust training program. Now, what you should remember or recall is we always need to specify for the LLM what temperature is needed and what top P. Okay, so I am conservative. I normally prefer precision, so I push the temperature and top P to the lowest possible so that we don't get hallucinations. We don't let the LLM be super creative. That way we will be able to get something that's more precise and relating to the information that we have so far generated and has been input by the user. Okay, so we've adjusted that. We are now going to adjust the learning objectives LLM to get the temperature that we are interested in and to get the top P that we are interested in. Okay, so now that we have that, again, we said if you want to see this output, then you can merge it and just have training objectives, training overviews, and we have the title, we have the training overview, we have the purpose, and we are now adding another output called learning objectives. Enter the double curly brackets, look for the learning objectives, probably at the bottom of the list, and we shall look at the response of the LLM, and that shall feed into our merge node. Now the merge node is just bringing these all together into one document. We can then convert this into a document. If you don't want to go through the whole process of saving it into Google and capturing it in a beautiful template, you just save this as a document and go and edit it manually. You could do that, or else we go through the process of designing a proper, beautifully created document that will give us the output that we want. So after learning objectives, we are going to deal with learning outcomes. As you can see, it is a step-by-step process. You take your time learning this. Once you master it and you've developed it once, that's it. You'll just keep modifying instructions and tweaking the kinds of outputs that you want, and maybe the kind of documents that you'll want to see at the end of the day. So we'll take this step by step, and do not rush. Take your time. It's easier to spend a day or two, let's say even 3 days learning this, but once you've learned it, once you've mastered it, you're set. Literally, you've set your infrastructure, for lack of a better word, for developing any kind of training program. It can be health, it can be engineering. You could modify this if you wanted to include pictures and diagrams. For now, let's deal with the text, get the farm structure out, and then we can say what modifications do we want to add pictures to our training, especially if we are developing the training guide. We shall be moving to the learning outcomes shortly, but now we have learning objectives as part. We have the title, we have done research, got a training overview, we've got the purpose of the training, we've got learning objectives. We're going to go into learning outcomes. Let's keep our eyes on the title and get this work done. We're now going to focus on the learning outcomes. Same routine, getting to the AI menu, picking an OpenAI LLM, and feeding it with instructions such that we are able to identify and create learning outcomes, and we will label it learning outcomes and then give it instructions. These instructions have been pre-created for you. Again, you'll find them as part of the resources that we have available for this particular course. We'll provide system instructions for creation of learning outcomes. And as usual, we can edit this in the pop-up and copy and paste these system instructions. We've told the LLM it is a professional instructional designer and competence-based education specialist. I'll call it trainer. You design learning outcomes that are grounded in Kolb's experiential learning theory and aligned with measurable professional competencies, because we want people to come out with something they can do. Your task is to generate competency-based learning outcomes for a training session. These outcomes must describe the real-world capabilities learners will demonstrate upon completion of training. Your output must align with experiential learning and be informed by the research evidence provided. All output must be in plain text for a single Google Sheet cell. List 3 to 5 learning outcomes in single sentences separated by semicolons. Do not use bullet points, numbering, line breaks, or formatting. Use active, observable, real-world verbs, e.g. perform, implement, integrate, evaluate, lead, that reflect applied competence. Do not exceed 400 characters. Those are the system instructions. And then we'll go further down and capture the prompt. Again, this has been developed for you so that you are able to simply copy and paste and have this running in no time. I copy this and then I paste it in the document, and we'll say use these inputs. Remember, we had inputs before. One was training title. We had inputs that was a training overview that was already created by another LLM. We have the research report that was created by the LLM. We have the audience, the topic that we had entered. The purpose of the training was created by the LLMs, and the learning objectives were created by the LLMs. So many of these outputs are already running pre-created by the LLM. What did we say when we are capturing or linking nodes? We use the double curly brackets, and it will bring us a drop down list, and then we can identify which node we want to connect to the LLM as its input. We had research report. Research report was an output of an LLM called researcher. And then we had audience, which was an input that was made by the user who are being targeted for this training. And then we had the topic, which was input by the user. We don't want the LLM to create something else. We want it to stay focused on the topic and the title that we had. And then we have the purpose of the training that we shall capture here. And purpose of the training, was it developed by an LLM? Yes, the LLM developed a purpose of training for us. And we also had learning objectives. So once we know the title, we have the research, we probably should be able to come up with relevant and adequate learning objectives. Remember, this was contextualized to a specific country, region, or organization. So we say generate 3 to 5 competency-based learning outcomes that describe what the learners will be able to perform. Ensure each outcome reflects an observable and measurable performance. Why? Because we don't want to pay for people to just feel good about something. They should be able to do something at work, real results at work, or demonstrate a skill or demonstrate action or experience. Then, of course, align with experiential learning, and it should be a competency that is suitable for the audience and the topic. Outcomes should focus on doing, not just knowing. Format as a single sentence with each outcome separated by semicolons and do not exceed 400 characters. So we've linked this. As usual, if we want to see it in our output, we shall put this in our merger node and then open double curly brackets, and we see if we can get our learning outcomes included. So our learning outcomes have been selected, and that will be the response of the LLM, and we will be able to see it as an output. We shall continue with the next section. But before we continue the next section, I will also demonstrate how we can save this to Google Sheets before we continue with the remaining sections of the presentation of this learning. We've done title, we've done an overview, we've done the purpose of the training, we've done training objectives, learning objectives, we've done learning outcomes. We shall take a branch off here and store all this information in Google Sheets before we move into all these other components, which are relatively more advanced, and we need to pay attention to them closely as we develop. See you in the next video.